while millions of students and their families breathed a sigh of relief after the Constitutional Court decided on Monday to annul a controversial law that sought to close down privately owned prep schools, or dershane. Many owners of these schools are trying to find a way out of the mess created by the law. The ruling Justice and Development Party, AK Party, decided in November 2013 to shut down or transform, as the government argues, the private prep schools, stirring a massive debate and attracting huge criticism from families and education representatives. The AK Party's bill was put to a vote and passed by Parliament in March 2014 and then signed into law by then-President Abdullah Gül. The law, which states that prep schools will be allowed to operate until September 1, 2015, was challenged by the main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, at the Constitutional Court last year, saying that it was a blow to the right to free enterprise. The court announced its long-awaited decision on Monday evening, annulling the law by a 5-12 majority vote on the grounds that the law represented a violation of constitutional articles related to the right to education and freedom of labor. Preliminary applications made by 2,228 out of 2,262 prep schools that applied for transformation were approved by the Ministry of Education, while 829 of these schools had already been reconfigured as other educational institutions, 727 as standard high schools, 91 as private middle schools, 6 as private primary schools, 3 as private Anatolian high schools, and 2 became private kindergartens. The future of these institutions depends on the amendments to be made by the Ministry of Education, as they are currently unable to operate as prep schools again. The prep schools that did not apply for transformation seem to have stayed away from today's chaotic situation. After the Constitutional Court's recent decision concerning its dershane ruling is published in the official Gazette, the ball will be in the court of the Ministry of Education. Since the ministry last year eliminated all the articles related to the establishment of prep schools in the relevant legislation, making it impossible to establish new prep schools at the time being, it needs to make amendments in the private education institutions regulation and add the criteria concerning the establishment of prep schools again. While pressing ahead with the controversial law, the AK Party government claimed that around 60,000 prep school teachers will not be affected by the closure of these schools, and they will be hired by the Ministry of Education without a state personnel examination, KPSS, requirement. The ministry would hire only 3,000 teachers who had 6 years of experience at prep schools, while leaving thousands of others jobless. The Constitutional Court's decision also annulled the hiring of the 3,000 prep school teachers by the ministry as well, because it was included in the same law. The time of the publication of the recent decision in the official Gazette and how long the court will give to the Ministry of Education to make the necessary amendments are of crucial importance, because if the court does not announce its recent decision before September 1, prep schools have to cease their activities. In addition, if the court gives a long time to the ministry to make the necessary amendments to make the operation of prep schools possible again, many might be closed down in this period because they are unable to enroll students. In 2014, a total of 80 prep schools turned into private schools. The ministry gave as much as TL 3,000 per student to standard high schools and TL 3,500 per student to private schools on a monthly basis, with an annual total cost of TL 5.7 million. Now there is uncertainty over whether these state incentives will continue. Some students who would begin high school were enrolled in standard high school several months ago and began to pay their fees, which range between TL 7,000 and TL 15,000. It is not yet known whether these students will be able to get their money back if they want to transfer to state-run high schools again. Moreover, the Ministry of Education was planning to fill the gap that would be created by the closure of prep schools with additional courses to be offered at state schools, hence raised the money to be paid to teachers for an hour of course from TL 10 to TL 20. Whether these courses will continue is another question that needs an answer now. According to Doan Silan, an expert on informatics and an education inspector, who spoke to the Maiden Daily in its Wednesday edition, the prep schools that still function could enroll new students, while those that applied for transformation could also continue as prep schools if their application process has not yet been concluded. With regards to the prep schools that already transformed into other types of educational institutions, Ceylon said they can no longer operate as prep schools. For these institutions to be turned into prep schools again, they need to wait for the Ministry of Education to make the necessary amendments in the relevant regulations for the establishment of prep schools. If the Ministry of Education introduces criteria that are hard to meet for the establishment of new prep schools, former prep schools may not operate as prep schools again. Belated justice. Although prep school owners and education unions have welcomed the Constitutional Court's ruling annulling the law that closed down prep schools, they complain that it is belated justice with some severe financial consequences for them. Final Prep Schools Education Coordinator Hadisi Yilmaz said in remarks that appeared in the Hurriyet Daily on Wednesday that the closure process of the prep school cost her both her health and finances. "I am one of the prep school representatives who closed down their institutions. I closed down 5 prep schools of mine due to the state decision. I was so upset when I was closing these institutions and parting ways with my employees. The cost of the closure was very high for me. I sold many of my apartments. I began to have medical problems due to the pain and sorrow I felt through this process. My heart arteries got clogged and I had 6 stents placed in my arteries," Yilmaz said, adding that she will take all the possible legal action, including going to the European Court of Human Rights, to ask an accounting for the price she paid. "For me, justice delayed is justice denied," she said in further remarks. Brahim Tassel, vice president of the Turkey Private Schools Association, said following the top court's decision that the Ministry of Education needs to draw a roadmap for the prep schools that closed down or turned into other educational institutions, adding that the roadmap should not be disadvantage of any of the educational institutions. Govind Preparatory Schools Owners Association, Govinder, Deputy President IUP KLC said the prep schools that transformed into standard high schools should not be victimized and be able to serve as standard high schools. The Constitutional Court underlined in its verdict that the amendment in the education law that seeks to abolish prep schools is against Articles 13, 42, and 48 of the Constitution. Drawing attention to the fact that Article 13 notes under which conditions fundamental rights and freedoms may be restricted, the court said the law in question was not in line with the requirements of the article. The court also said the law was in violation of Articles 42 and 48 of the Constitution, which address the right to education and freedom of labor, respectively. With regards to the court rapporteurs trying to legitimize in his report the closure of prep schools with the closure of casinos in Turkey in 1998, which were also free enterprises, the court reportedly said prep schools give no harm to public order, morality, and public security. On Wednesday, Brahim Kaln, the presidential spokesperson, declined to make any comments on the Constitutional Court's Monday ruling with regard to prep schools, saying that the court needs to announce its reasoned decision first and an assessment would be made later. Neither the parents nor students will be subjected to any difficulties on this issue and the necessary measures will be taken to this effect, Kaln said. Then Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan was the architect of the laws that sought the closure of the prep schools, which with their affordable fees are regarded by middle and low-income families as an equalizer for educational opportunities. According to Ministry of Education figures, there are 3,858 prep schools in Turkey, attended by 2.2 million students. Out of the 739,000 high school seniors who must take the university entrance exam to continue their education, 550,000 attend prep schools. Most Turkish schools have 40 hours of classes per week, while prep schools offer 15 to 20 hours of extra weekly lessons.